And we are live with Detachment 075. Welcome to our sixth episode of the Detachments podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Cadet Third Class Jirian Gihama. As always, I am accompanied by members of the PA team, Cadet Major Rojas and Cadet Third Class Kinghorn. We have a very special guest for everyone. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Colonel Grimm. Welcome to the show, sir.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate you guys having me here. Should be fun.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you, sir. So for all the listeners out there, can you please give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Colonel Grimm, I'm the DET commander here at DET 075, best in the West. Been in the job for I guess coming up on a year and a half now. Unfortunately, a good portion of that has been virtual, which has taken some of the fun out of it. But still a fantastic opportunity to give back to the Air Force and help young folks that are just starting out their Air Force journey. Help them along that path. So I'm an Army brat. My dad did 23 years in the Army. My two older brothers, they went in the Air Force, so I ended up following them. So all three of my dad's sons went in the Air Force. I'm not sure how he feels about that, and with none of us going in the Army. I consider Kansas home because my dad retired actually when I was pretty young. So I grew up in Kansas and went through ROTC and been on active duty now for over 25 years. So that's I guess I should mention also probably a very important part. And if my wife listens to this, if I didn't mention this, I'd get locked upside the head or something at least. Also been married for coming up on 28 years. We have 4 girls from 27 to 17 and 2 grandsons also. Awesome. Got boys in my life finally. So that's me.
Awesome, sir. Thank you. So, growing up, where did the interest start with joining the military?
Yeah, no, it definitely started because of my dad. I consider Kansas home. I was born in New York, and so we were stationed in New York. We were stationed in New Jersey at one time. We were stationed in Germany, and then we were stationed at Fort Riley in Kansas, and that's where my dad retired out of. It was Fort Riley, Kansas. So not only obviously my dad being in the military, but then when he retired and we stayed right next to this ginormous Army base. So I was constantly around the Army all the time and around the military. And so that obviously drew my interest. But just listening to my dad talk about his experiences within the Army and the camaraderie that he experienced, the different opportunities that the Army provided him, the leadership opportunities that he was presented. So I found all that very fascinating, and then also just being around him and his buddies. After retired, talking about the old days when we did this and we did that, and, whatever. So all that just kind of came together. Having this interest, but also this passion to serve, and it just always seemed like the right thing to do, to be able to serve our country, to hopefully have a positive impact on the military, but mainly the people that you're around. So that's really what started gearing me towards life in the military.
So moving down the path of schooling within your career, what school did you go to and what did you study?
I went to the best university out there. I don't know. Can I say that on this? I mean, San Diego State is the second best university out there. Kansas State University is probably the best university out there. No, I don't know. So I went to Kansas State University. Took me a little bit time to graduate to figure out what I wanted to study and that type of stuff. So I actually did 5 years while I was there. That's where I met my wife. Also, we met in college, and in fact, we got married in college. And so majored in history. So after a couple of years of messing around with different majors, I finally settled in on history. That was probably the subject that obviously it interested me the most. So I went after a history degree.
Sounds good, sir. So when you start going in the Air Force, why did you choose ROTC?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And so a little bit of backstory. So again, I talked a little bit about my interest of going into the military, and I'm quite honest with you, I was pretty set on going in the Army. All right. And what I had my eyes on is I want to be an infantry officer. I want to be an infantry officer. I want to go to Ranger school. I want to go airborne school. And I want to be a platoon leader. I wanted to lead soldiers. I consider myself kind of a ground guy anyways. And that was really kind of my interest and my thought of where I would head in my military experience. And I debated a little bit between enlisting and going off to college. But the college opportunity presented itself. So I ended up going to college. Now, obviously, I watched both my brother, so I'm the baby of the family. So my brothers were older than me. And so I got to watch and listen or talk about their careers in the Air Force and how much they were enjoying the Air Force. But the real driving point for me was back in 1991. So I was a freshman in college. I had not joined ROTC at this point. Still, having this debate in my mind, do I enlist? Do I try to go the ROTC route? And really geared towards the Army. And so Desert Storm happened. I'm sure you guys have read about that in your history books. And unfortunately, my one of my older brothers was killed in action. So he was a navigator on an AC-130 gunship that was shot down. And watching how the Air Force treated his family. So he was married and had 2 little girls. And watching how the Air Force took care of his wife and kids after he was killed, and the way they interacted with our family, I was completely impressed. I was an impressionable 18-year-old at that time when he was killed, and just watching how the Air Force took care of their own, that immediately flipped a switch for me. I'm like, I'm Army's out. I'm going Air Force. I want to be part of that organization. The way that they've stepped up and to take care of the family. So literally right after he was killed, I walked into the ROTC building, walked into the Air Force office, and I was like, how do I do this? This is what I want to do. And so they basically signed me up, and I started the next semester and did 4 years of Air Force ROTC. So that's what got me to into the Air Force and made me decide to do ROTC. And my brother that got killed, he actually he graduated from Kansas State also, and went through the ROTC program at Kansas State University.
Sorry about your loss, sir. Yeah. So when you were in Air Force ROTC, was you like what you said you wanted to be a ground guy in the Army? So did that ultimately influence your decision to go into security forces?
Absolutely. So obviously the Air Force mission is all about flying. Which I think is absolutely fascinating. And like I mentioned earlier, I was very interested about jumping out of airplanes, but never had the passion to fly. My brother is a navigator. He wanted to be a pilot, but his eyesight wasn't good enough to be a pilot. And that was his dream. That's what he always wanted to do. And for whatever reason, that just wasn't my big interest. Thought it was cool, saw, the cool movies back in the day. You guys may have seen it on, Top Gun, that type of stuff. It was cool to watch. But I never had that calling to fly. So I really didn't know what I wanted to do at all, to be honest with you. Had no idea. Again, I knew I wanted to be part of the organization because of the way that they were taking care of my brother's family. So I'm going through RTC, exploring different stuff, and I get sent on, I think they call it Ops Air Force now. So I got the opportunity to go to Hurlburt Field down in Florida for a couple weeks and visit different career fields while we were down there. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know so security forces back then was called security police. Didn't know anything about them. Didn't even know. I was familiar with MPs, with military police in the Army. I hadn't really thought that much about them. But so I'm down at Herbert Field, and I see these airmen, they got these cool berets on, carrying guns and all this other stuff. I'm like, who are those guys? What are they all about? And so I got an opportunity to spend some time with the security police down there at Hurlburt, and was able to learn about their mission. And when I got back to my detachment, I talked to our APAS, to Major Bavra, and I was like, "Hey, sir, I want to do that security police stuff. How do I do that?" And that's kind of what I geared towards, and ended up putting that as my number one choice for career fields, and was lucky enough to get selected for it. And that's what drew me to the cool berets and carrying guns. That's what initially drove me to security forces. So, and obviously once I learned about the mission, it really did appeal to me. So it was good.
Quite an interesting story. So concluding the Air Force choice section, was there an important lesson or takeaway that you had detracted from your experience in the Air Force ROTC in Kansas?
Yeah. So I think probably one of the biggest things that you may not even realize that you're learning it, but it's about the teamwork. It's about being together and accomplishing a mission. While we may have all been thinking about ourselves as individuals, like, hey, I want to make it to commissioning, I want to earn those second lieutenant bars, I want to be a second lieutenant United States Air Force, I want to do security forces, I want to be a pilot, I want to do whatever it is. But at the end of the day, as I look back on it, we all came together to ensure that we all succeeded. And I don't even know that we realized we were doing it. But again, the camaraderie, it came, I don't know if it's natural, but it was definitely part of the experience there. And as looking back on that, you see the same thing on active duty, right? And I've seen it for the last 25 years, right? It's all about the team. It's all about the teamwork, right? It's not about the individual. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't give individual effort. Obviously, we expect our airmen to be the best tacticians at whatever it is that they're doing. But it takes the team in order to get everything done. And that started to really come to light and become evident during ROTC, even though I didn't really realize it at the time, if that makes sense. But definitely one of the biggest lessons learned for sure.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, was ever your degree even associated with security forces or helping you to become a security forces officer?
Technically, probably not, because there's a history degree. But I think it's important to understand history and learn from history, and I think that can help inform decisions. I think it can help you potentially not make mistakes, not repeat mistakes from the past, that type of stuff. So in a roundabout way, yes. Looking back on it, should I've gotten a criminal justice degree? Maybe I didn't. I ended up getting later on when I was in active duty. I got a master's degree in criminal justice. But one of the things that my APAS suggested that I do while I was in ROTC is look at being a reserve police officer with the civilian department. So where Kansas State's at is in the town of Manhattan, and they had a reserve program, but it was pretty intensive. Like, you had to do X, I forget all the requirements, but you had to do X number of hours a month, and blah blah blah. And I was a full-time college student. I was working, married. My wife was working. We had our first kid while we were in college, and the requirements just became too much, and my life was getting out of balance. So there was it was a very small town right outside of Manhattan, Wamego, that had a very small police department that had a reserve program also. So I ended up going on with them, and they didn't have the same minimum requirements for how much you had to work that Manhattan had. So I ended up spending, my last year and a half, I guess, in college. I was a reserve police officer with them, maybe a little bit longer. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that helped me getting selected, because it allowed the cadre, when they submitted all my stuff, hey, his number one choice is security police, and oh, by the way, he's a reserve police officer, and da 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 da. So I think I can't say 100% sure why I was selected for it, but I would have to assume that helped me get selected as a security police officer. More than the degree did. Obviously, I had to have the degree just to get commissioned, but for the actual selection of security police, I think that probably had a big role in it.
Thank you, sir. So for cadets out there that are aspiring or interested in becoming a security forces officer, do you recommend any particular degree or programs that they could do to help them out in their careers as a security forces officer?
Yeah. So to go back to, anything with, criminal justice, obviously I think that plays into a portion of what we do. Any kind of psychology also, to learn about how you deal with people and how people think, that type of stuff, and even into some sociology type stuff also. So I think any of those type of things would I think be beneficial to you as a security forces officer. So you got to look at security forces. There's three. In my opinion, there's like three main mission sets for security forces, right? So you have your normal law enforcement portion, where you're enforcing normal laws like a civilian police department would do it, wherever your hometown is at. So you do that on the Air Force base, right? But then you also have your security mission, which is like protecting aircraft, other high value, equipment, items, resources. In the Air Force, we use protection level resources, protecting them. And then the third mission set being base defense. And when you do base defense, especially like in a combat zone, you may end up spending time outside the airbase to ensure that the airbase isn't getting attacked. And again, if you know how to deal with people, if you understand societies, if you understand the history and the culture of the areas that you're having to operate in, I think that is very beneficial to you as you develop your scheme of maneuver. So having that background in criminal justice, criminology, psychology, sociology, any of that type of stuff, I think is beneficial.
So now moving discussion over into security forces field in particular, what particular training did you have to go through? And can you describe it? I know it was a while ago, but just give us the gist.
Wow, a long time ago. So it was a little bit different when I went through. So when I did my tech school training, so it was split. So I had to go to Fort Dix, New Jersey for 2 months to do air-based ground defense training. And at the time, it was run jointly by the Army and the Air Force. And it really taught you, again, how to defend air bases in austere environments, in combat zones, that type of stuff. It gave you some of the essential, small unit tactics, light infantry type skills. And that's why it was done jointly with the Army. So got to learn about, patrolling, both mounted and dismounted, so in vehicles, not in vehicles, how to operate in urban terrain, built up areas, towns and that type of stuff. Again, how to maneuver, to maneuver forces and how to defend bases. So then the second portion of our tech school was down at Lackland Air Force Base, and it dealt with the law enforcement and security side of the house. So spent a lot of time, learning the normal stuff that you would associate with being a police officer. From simple stuff like how do you handcuff somebody, how do you challenge somebody, how do you respond to a domestic, how do you do a high risk traffic stop, how do you secure a crime scene, all that type of stuff. And then on the security side of the house, again, how to protect protection level resources, so how to protect aircraft, how to protect nuclear weapons, that different type of stuff. So today, all of security forces officer tech school is all held down at Lackland Air Force Base, with a portion of it out at Camp Bullis, which is in the northern part of San Antonio. So everything is handled down in San Antonio. Still kind of the same basic concept, but everything is now run by the Army, and you go down there and you do the course. So it's not two separate courses like when I went through. And again, we had the Army component when I went through also, but it's all run by the Air Force now, and you go down, and I think it's like a 3-month tech school. I think it's like 3 months now.
So with all that background and policing knowledge, you're basically not the guy to mess with on the streets.
I don't know about it. Not anymore. I mean, you can mess with me all you want now. I'm old and broken.
Not true.
So going into your officer career, what are the main challenges as a new lieutenant in the security forces side?
Yeah. So, a lot of challenges, right? So you have to understand with security forces that, there's not a lot of officers to begin with. So depending on which squadron you go to, you may not have a whole bunch of peers. You won't have a whole bunch of people to hang out with from your squadron. And you'll find that you're the same age as a lot of A1Cs and senior airmen. But obviously you got to keep that professional realm, with the enlisted corps. But probably one of the other, the biggest challenges I would say is your simple lack of knowledge, right? And that knowledge based off experience, right? So, when I showed up my first duty station, so, young Second Lieutenant Grimm shows up, hey, what's up, right? And I don't know jack, right? Cool. I graduated, from college. I got a college degree, yay! But that college degree doesn't, replace experience. So you get assigned to a flight, and you're in charge of that flight, and you have the least amount of experience of everybody that's there, right? So you have a brand new airman 6 months out of tech school that has 6 months more experience than you do, right? So you got to learn, and I would argue the best way to learn is obviously to learn from your people, right? Find those NCOs that really understand your mission set. Tuck yourself underneath their wings and learn. Know when to keep your mouth shut and listen, but also don't be afraid to ask questions either, right? Because you'll get some young lieutenants that come in and they're afraid that they're going to look dumb in front of somebody or something like that. But I think what you'll find is most people appreciate being asked questions, being able to share their knowledge and their experience of what they've learned over their careers. So not being the smartest guy in the room can be very difficult. Even though that you might be the guy that's supposed to be in charge, being humble enough to understand that, and not be afraid to ask questions. So I'll give you an example if I can. So I was a flight commander out at Aviano Air Base in Italy, and so I was on Charlie flight working swings and mids. So we'd work 3 swing shift. So it was like our swing shifts, 2 to 10, I think. Then we'd work 3 midnight shifts, so 2200 to 06, and then 3 days off. So 3 swings, 3 mids, 3 days off, and then repeat. So I was the flight commander for Charlie flight, and of course I had a flight sergeant. And so anytime before I made a decision that would affect the flight, I always cleared it to the flight sergeant. Always. Right? It's like, hey, Sergeant Irwin, hey, this is what I think we should do. Are you cool with it? Yeah, sir, that's cool. Or no, sir, we're not. That's dumb. We ain't doing that. We're gonna do this. Yeah, right, Sergeant. Got it. So that's a very simplistic example that I made sure I went to the folks that had the experience, that had the knowledge, and ensured that that I wasn't leading the flight down the wrong path, right? So they kept me in check, and I hope I was humble enough to listen to them and not make those bad decisions, because I came up with all kinds of bad decisions, but they kept me in check without a doubt. And I hope you all experience this. And the Air Force and the Space Force, they got a fantastic, an amazing enlisted corps. And it's what I argue, it's what separates us from other nations' militaries, is how good our enlisted corps is, how professional they are, how good they are. Their job knowledge and expertise it's just amazing, without a doubt. Did I get off topic? Did I get on my soapbox? No? Okay.
No, sir.
Oh, that was a great answer, sir. So as a very experienced security forces officer, can you please explain what would be the pros and cons of the profession?
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the cons, right? So part of the cons is you're a shift worker for a good portion of your career. So a lot of people, they want to work Monday through Friday, right? And then they have their weekends off to do whatever. A lot of times you don't have that, right? And so all your friends are going off to, hey, we're gonna go, do this weekend. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna have this party here, whatever. Blah blah. I got to work, right? So that can make things very difficult. With security forces, the unit is on duty 24 hours a day, right? 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It doesn't matter holidays, birthdays, any of that type of stuff. So you end up missing a lot simply by being a shift worker. So that can make things very difficult. Since 9/11, our ops tempo has been crazy on the enlisted side of the house. For a good portion of the time since 9/11, they've been on a 1-to-1 deployment ratio. So out for 6 months, home for 6 months, out for 6 months, home for 6 months. Which is difficult. It's difficult on the body, but it's difficult on families, man. So that makes it very hard. So that can be a con. There are times, on a base, people can get upset with you as an organization. If you've been on an Air Force base, you have to go through the gates that are controlled by security forces. So if traffic gets backed up, whose fault is that? Well, it's ours, right? So we get blamed for that type of stuff. If there's an incident, we have to set up a cordon for something, so we block traffic, or people can't get to their buildings, or whatever. Whose fault is that? It's ours. So you get blamed for some of the inconveniences that happen out there also. But on the positive side of the house, one, I think we play a huge part in the overall mission for the United States Air Force. We try to provide a safe environment for everybody else to be able to accomplish whatever their mission sets are, and not let the enemy have a vote in how we're going to operate on an installation. I think the camaraderie within security forces is pretty amazing. I go back to Charlie flight at Aviano when I was a lieutenant. And working swings and mids, working those midnight shifts. We're basically the only ones on base. Other first responders obviously are out there also, the fire department and that type of stuff. But I mean, we were tight, man. It was all about the family. It was all about the Charlie flight family, and you get really close and build just this family environment. This relationship with your fellow airmen. That's just absolutely amazing. And you guys will do anything for each other, right? With Charlie flight, we had, I think, 55 airmen, and to this day, I'm still in contact. 22 years later, with, I would say, probably at least 75% of the flight. So you just build these type of relationships, which is awesome. I also had a lot of job satisfaction for the mission sets that we got to do. The deployments were. Such being away from the family, without a doubt, but professionally very, very fulfilling, and really feel like you're making a difference. Defending an air base in Iraq or in Afghanistan, or allowing the other entities to carry out their missions. I found it very fulfilling. And then whether you're on the enlisted side or the officer side, as you fill leadership positions. You get an opportunity to make a real impact in people's lives, right? And hopefully a positive impact in people's lives. You can help them meet their professional and their personal goals, right? And that's the type of impact that you can have on people. Even as a second lieutenant. Again, in security forces, the frontline supervisor, the staff sergeant out there, that staff sergeant, it's got 4, 5, 6 airmen that they're responsible for, and they're responsible for almost everything that's going on in that airman's life, right? And they're really guiding that airman to success. Again, both in their personal life and within their professional life. So on the officer side of the house, you get to have that same type of impact also. That's what's kept me in the Air Force more than anything, is being around airmen. helping them fulfill their goals, watching them grow, watching them become these fantastic, NCOs and officers. I mean, it's completely fulfilling for me. And I love watching their success, without a doubt.
So you mentioned the meaningful and sort of impactful experience that you got to leave others with. As you advanced in your military career, I presume that each and every assignment implied more responsibilities and bigger problems to be solved. Can you explain any techniques that you use to approach each new assignment to make that exact positive and meaningful impact?
Yeah. So, lots of different ways to explore this question, for sure. But I would argue one of the ways, especially as you start to move up, is to ensure that you surround yourself with great people, right? And you guys may have heard me say this before. I will never claim to be the brightest guy in the room. I'm just not, right? But I would like to think that I have the ability to make sure I surround myself with good people, that want to do good for their fellow airmen, that want to do good for the mission, want to do good, obviously for the United States Air Force. So I think that's a key part as you move forward. So I talked about being a flight commander, always going to the flight chief before making a decision. So I can use that same rationale, or I use that same rationale as I continue to advance throughout my career. So after being a flight commander, what you strive for next in our career field is you want to be an operations officer. So I was fortunate enough I got to do that a couple of times. And as an operations officer, you have an operations superintendent that you work with, who's normally a senior master sergeant. And so as an ops officer, I'm a captain, have a little more experience now, but I always went to the ops suit before I made big decisions. Always. Hey, senior, this is what I'm getting ready to do. Are you good with that? Not good with that? You make sure that, again, I'm making the right decision. Again, think about a senior master and, about 20 years of experience compared to my 5 years of experience. Right. And I thought it was always very important to ensure that I got their blessing before making decisions. Then on to being a squadron commander, right? After being an operations officer, you hope to be a squadron commander. I was very fortunate. I got to command 4 different squadrons, and so I had a chief master sergeant as our security forces manager within our squadron. So same thing, right? Before I make a decision to affect that squadron, hey chief, here's the problem set. Here's what I was thinking. Am I off base? What do you think? What do we need to do? Here's the decision I want to make. Are you good with it? Not good with it? And I always cleared everything through the chief. So then, my next level of command that I got to do, and this is the highest command I got to do, was a group commander. And as a group commander, I had a group chief, right? So same thing. Hey, chief, here's what get ready to push out to the group, right? And I've got over 20 years of experience at this point, and in fact, I'm even older than chief, but they're still a chief, right? They're still chief master sergeant, and their experience is still superior. So always cleared everything through the chief, right? So want to have good folks around you, especially in some of those key positions, an ops superintendent. As a group commander, I wanted to ensure that I had really good squadron commanders, and for each of those squadrons that they had good chief master sergeants within their squadrons. They had good operations officers. They had good ops superintendents. They had good first sergeants, because that key leadership team is huge in the overall success of your squadron, your group, that type of stuff. And I'll even take it a step further. As a detachment commander at San Diego State University, over 25 years of experience, I would clear everything through senior master sergeant Scaramouche, right? Hey, senior, here's what we're getting ready to do, with the cadets. Are you cool with this? And I always got the seniors input before, making decisions that would affect the cadet wing. So
is that a leadership technique that you can sort of advise cadets to use?
Yes. Now, you don't always get to control your team, right? But if you have the ability to affect your team, right, and to surround yourself with the people that will make your team stronger, more successful, and not just on the mission side of the house, but taking care of people at the same time. Anytime that you can do that is huge. So, but because you can't always control who's around you, I think the other one of the key aspects, and I know the three of you have heard me talk about this quite a bit, is getting to know your people, right? And it doesn't matter what level you're at. You need to get to know your people and get to know them on a personal level. Okay, and I'll admittedly, as a group commander, that becomes very difficult when you have over 1,300 people in your organization. It gets very hard to know 1,300 people on a personal level. But the more time that you spend getting to know your folks on a personal level, one, you'll know how to best surround yourself with folks. But when you can't control it, you'll still know what makes that particular person tick. Right? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Why are they there? What are their desires? What are their goals? Right? And then how can you help them achieve those professional or personal goals? And how does that intertwine with mission success? Right? And how does that intertwine with taking initiatives to being innovative? Right? So you're not just simply getting the mission done, but you're getting better as an organization. And that takes getting to know your folks on a personal level, so they understand who you are, you understand who they are. You can have open lines of communication to really talk about the organization, about the mission, about where you're trying to go. Ensure that you have everybody's input so you can make the best decisions possible, and move them and the entire organization forward to be successful. So they're successful, and obviously that your organization is successful also. A lot of people can give that lip service, right? Okay, yeah, oh, yeah, I definitely, man, I know all my people in my flight or in my squadron or my group, whatever. Absolutely, all right. Oh, really? So, how long's Smitty been married? I'm pretty sure he's married. Yeah, but how long's he been married? How old is his kids? Right? Is he just doing this enlistment and pressing out and wants to do something else on the outside, or is he planning on re-enlisting? Right? What's his overall game plans? And there's people that don't take the time to really get to know their folks, and I would argue that's one of the most important things you can do. And you can't do it via email. You can't do it via your text messaging. You got to do it face to face. You have to have that personal connection.
Thank you, sir. So with all that experience that you just said, there are cadets out there that are afraid to make mistakes. So maybe to help put them at ease, will you be able to share your biggest mistake or failure, and what did you learn from it?
Oh my goodness. So I got to think about I've made so many mistakes, and they just, they happen, right? One of the things that cadets need to really understand within ROTC is, ROTC is a safe environment to make mistakes, right, and to learn from your mistakes, right? As cadets, during lead lab, if you're put in a leadership position, nobody's shooting at you, right? The mission's not going to fail if you turn left when you're supposed to turn right. So if we build the right environment within the detachment, then folks would understand that it's okay to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. Now, if you keep making the same mistake over and over and over again, then that's an issue that we need to address. And it may simply be a training issue. It may be a comprehension issue, whatever it may be. Obviously, we have to work through that. But folks need to understand it's okay to make mistakes, and it happens all the time, right? And it can be simple mistakes, right? When I got to detachment, Senior Master Sergeant Scaramouche is trying to teach me some of this admin stuff, and she's like, "All right, I just need you to input this stuff into Wings, right? Into the computer system thing. All right, Senior, I got this. Go away. Let me just do this, right?" And I'm freaking that, and I did it all wrong. right? And then her being a good senior math sergeant, though, she didn't go fix it. She made me fix it, which was awesome. But I had to admit that, I screwed it all up. And, she didn't let me screw up anything, that would permanently, hurt a cadet's career. But I had to go back and fix it. So, all kinds of mistakes. I don't know if I come up with other good examples. Oh, I had, so I told you, I always, as a flight commander, as a ops soup, or as a commander, I always went to my, my flight chief, my ops soup, or the chief, for advice and direction before making decisions. So I'm stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. I'm the ops officer, and we're having a ops staff meeting. And my ops soup was Senior Master Sergeant John Western, and he's now a retired Chief Master Sergeant. Awesome dude. Still keep in contact with him today. So anyways, so he says something in the staff meeting, and I go against him in front of everybody in this meeting, right? And I said whatever I said. I don't even remember what it's about, but I remember this distinctly because I looked at him and he shot me a look. Remember, so he's a senior master sergeant, I'm a captain, and so technically I outrank him, right? And he gave me this look, and all I could think was, I'm in so much trouble once this meeting ends. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be bad. And so they get to the rest of the meeting, and I'm pretty sure I went back and tried to correct whatever I said against the senior in front of everybody. But so the meeting gets over, and I go in my office, and I'm just waiting, right? And I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. And sure enough, a minute or two later, the senior did not wait. Comes in and he closes my door, right? Like a good senior NCO should do, right? He's gonna discipline in private. And he let me have it without a doubt. And it's, sir, you will never, ever, contradict me in front of people again. Like, and I mean, just tore me up. And I'm like, Roger, senior. Roger. Yep. Check. Roger, senior. Got it. Because I was definitely in the wrong. If I disagreed with senior, I should have dealt with that in private and not in public. And he corrected my mistake without a doubt, and I earned every bit of it. So we make mistakes all the time. I think the important part is understanding, when you make a mistake, is that you own it, right? It's your mistake. Own it, right? Be confident in the fact that we're all human, but we're good enough to learn from our mistakes and that we can get better, right? So own your mistakes. Don't hand it off to somebody else. Don't blame somebody else. Own your mistakes, and then internalize it, and do in fact learn from it, right? Because what you don't want to do is make the same mistakes, over and over again. You want to learn from those mistakes. And then the last part, right? And so I use this a lot at field training. So if you're in a leadership position and you make a mistake, right? Own it, internalize it so you don't make the same mistake. But as you pass off that leadership position to the next cadet, teach them, mentor them. Hey man, here's what worked for me. And oh, by the way, here's what did not work at all, right? And here's how I screwed that up. I would highly recommend you not make the same mistake that I just did, right? So you're helping your fellow cadets, you're helping your fellow airmen, and you're helping your organization to get better, right? By teaching other people about the mistakes that you made. And that can be difficult for folks, right? Because they'd be like, I'm not admitting to anybody that I'm not perfect. Man, get over it. Ain't nobody out there perfect. So, that's my 2 cents on that.
This is probably going to be off topic, but what was your favorite assignment specifically, and why?
So what everyone always tell you is, all my assignments they're all great, and they were. They absolutely were. In fact, during coffee talks with cadets this morning, one of the questions I got asked was, what do you like about San Diego and the opportunity to be stationed here, which obviously is awesome. And then I asked them, so if you're told that you're your next assignment, you're going to go to Grand Forks Air Force Base, North Dakota. What would your reaction be? And, I was like, oh my God, North Dakota, man, it's cold up there. So that's the one time in my career where, I was like, man, I just got an assignment to Grand Forks and I'm not excited to go to Grand Forks at all. And it was one of our best assignments without a doubt. So what I told the cadets this morning, and I'll reiterate here, is every assignment is what you make of it. All right. So, and we've been stationed all over the world. I've had the opportunity to deploy all over the place. And I've enjoyed every single place that I've been to. So it's all what you make of it. But if you're going to back me in the corner and say, what is your favorite assignment? Definitely the 786 Security Forces Squadron at Simbach, Germany. So I was a squadron commander there for 2 years. So one, we're in Germany. If you've never been to Europe, Europe is awesome. Absolutely love Europe, love Germany. Opportunity to travel all over Europe was just fantastic. The organization that we were in, so we were we were one of the squadrons within the 86 Contingency Response Group. So we had a dual fold mission set. So we ran the Europe Security Forces Regional Training Center. So before any security forces airmen that were stationed in Europe deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, Gulf states, and that type of stuff, they did base defense training with us for a few weeks. So we got the opportunity to run the regional training center, that schoolhouse. So that was fantastic. And then the second part of our mission was part of the contingency response group. And its main mission was to assess airfields and to be able to open airfields to bring in, obviously, aircraft. We were also airborne capable. So we were jumping out of airplanes. So I got the opportunity to go to airborne school down at Fort Benning, Georgia with the Army. So again, going back to when I thought I was going to go in the Army and I wanted the infantry ranger and go to airborne. Finally, as a major, I got the opportunity to not only go to airborne school, but I became a jump master also. So we got the opportunity to travel both personally, but also professionally. We got to travel all over Europe. We got to work with a lot of our NATO partners, got to jump all over the place. I've been awarded German, Italian, Bulgarian, and Serbian jump wings. So got to jump with those different militaries. And then what really made it the most special, if you will, was the people. So that squadron was absolutely fantastic. All very, very motivated airmen, without a doubt. Anything that we need to do to accomplish the mission, they took care of. It was just absolutely phenomenal. Great bunch of airmen that really made the assignment, and then based off the location and based off our mission sets, just made it a very memorable assignment. Definitely a lot of fun. My neck and back, a little beat up from falling out of airplanes. But loved it. But all assignments were absolutely fantastic. Again, it is absolutely what you make of it, and what you're going to find. I would argue, especially if you stay around, is the people are really going to make your assignments, and the location is a bonus on top of it.
So now we'd like to shift from that topic over into the advancement from lieutenant colonel to colonel. We as cadets don't see many colonels, and we know that there aren't many around. Can you talk about what the board wants to see in a future colonel? And as well, it's a two-part question. At this point in the military career, many lieutenant colonels have an amazing amount of accomplishments and experience, but what really makes the big difference between a lieutenant colonel and a colonel?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And there is no single answer to it. There's a lot of different paths to 06 to colonel, and up until 2015, I never thought colonel was. I never thought I was on the path to colonel. I just didn't. Again, there's a lot of different paths that you can take. The particular path that I was on is I was a unit guy. So I never did any joint time. So I was never on a combatant command staff. I was never on the half staff. I never did, any of those big type of staff jobs. I was never an exec. I never did, any of that type of stuff. I was a unit guy, and I got to command a lot at the squadron level. And then, once I made 06, I got to command at the group level. So I never thought I was going to be in 06. So got to do my 4 squadron commands. As I finished up my last squadron command at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan, I deployed to Afghanistan for a year as a deputy group commander. And so one of the things the board does look at is progression and how well you do in each one of those jobs as they try to project, how well you'll do in the future. So like I mentioned, I got the opportunity to command 4 times, which is a lot. So I think that showed, continued leadership potential. And then in Afghanistan, that year went very well. Also as a deputy group commander, and the wing commander there, as he wrote my performance report, he ranked me very, very high. And to be ranked as a support guy in a combat flying wing, I think that started to really set things in motion, to show the board that there was still further potential. And then as I came out of Afghanistan, I did a stint on the PACAF staff. So it was my first time at MASCOM staff. I'd never been a MASCOM staff officer, that type of stuff. But I was fortunate there also, and was ranked very high on my performance reports there. And based off that continued progression of commands, the continued progressions of being ranked very high on my performance reports, I got the opportunity I got selected to go to school in residence. So it's your senior military education. So I got to go off to Air War College for a year, and the promotion rate. So for SDE, so your senior developmental education, at the time, if you got to go in residence, it was about a 99% selection rate to 06. So very, very competitive to get selected to go to school in resident, which I never thought I'd get selected. But they selected me, so they sent me off to school. So once they selected me for school, that was the first hint that, wow, I might actually make 06. You go ask any of my buddies, they're like, Grimm, you're not making no freaking 06. What are you talking about? So that was the first indication. And then, I had fun at school, got that all knocked out, got another master's degree out of that. So that was good, I guess. And then found out while I was at school that I was selected for 06. And again, like I said, I'm a unit guy, so, not a lot of staff time. And my hope was as an 06 that they would let me continue to command, and that I could become a group commander, and not a staff officer. So that was my hope. And again, I was very fortunate. I got the opportunity to command at the group level, and who knew, even at the detachment level, which was a surprise also. So doing a great job, I think, showing, the job that you're in, doing a very good job there, which again, I contribute to people that I was around, that were a lot smarter than me, that kept me in line, kept us, as an organization on track to do good things. So showing that continued progression, I had bosses that took care of me, that ranked me high, and then the rest kind of took care of itself. So I never worried about it, to be honest with you. I mean, again, I never thought I'd be in 06. I never really thought it was in my cards. I never really thought about it. I like being around airmen. I like being at the unit level. I was glad, that I didn't do a lot of staff time. Glad I was never an exec. There's some things I know there's a lot that I could have learned from those jobs that would have made me a better officer. But I'll take being with airmen any day of the week.
In your last assignment as a security forces group commander, you were in charge of more than 1,300 personnel, key armament for the United States, and infrastructure spread approximated to 10,000 square miles across Wyoming, Nebraska, and Colorado. How were you able to handle that huge responsibility and not let it mentally overwhelm you? And what was like the most valuable lesson you could take away from that type of leadership?
Yeah, great question. So interesting part. So as you listen to that, the missile field spread over almost 10,000 square miles. So I had never done a tour, as a lieutenant or as a captain. I'd never done any time in the missile fields before, so I didn't have a background in the missile fields. So I definitely had to learn a lot, and I had to learn a lot very quickly. I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record, though, right? So I quickly surrounded myself with really good people, right? So my group chief, so I was very fortunate during my 2 years. I had 3 different group chiefs, all fantastic. And I started off with Chief Facemeyer, John Facemeyer. Again, still, keep in touch with him. He's retired now. But he was like, all right, sir, here's where you got to concentrate your efforts as you start to learn this job. So he, definitely started me off on the right foot. And then as Chief Lewis came in, Brian Lewis, who's now the top enlisted cop in the United States Air Force now. So as Chief Lewis came in, he really started to set the stage to making the organization better and what route we needed to go to progress as an organization. But having the right squadron commanders was huge, because obviously they're the ones out there really making the mission happen, and again along with their chiefs and their ops officers and ops superintendents, and we tried to set an environment for communication, right? So again, you got a guy that doesn't have background in missile security and all the ins and outs of that, so really need to understand from the youngest airman up to the chief master sergeants, squadron commanders, to make sure that the lines of communication were open, that data could get to myself and to the chief, so that we could make good decisions on behalf of the organization. And you really had to have those lines of communication open and allow people to try to have a say in what's going on. You also have to understand, if you got over 1,300 people, you're not going to make everybody happy, right? So the decisions that you make, based off what your wants, needs, desires, goals are, you may completely disagree with a decision that the chief and I had to make. But I would also argue, if you take the time to try to explain the why behind the decision, a person may not agree with it, but hopefully they would understand where we were coming from and why we made that decision. And hopefully they would understand that the decision was made with their best interest at heart and mission accomplishment. And it's a tough environment out there. Our airmen, as they go out to the missile field, they're spending 5 days at a time, living out in the missile field, so away from their families for 5 days at a time. With a lot of responsibilities, lack of some infrastructure, that type of stuff. So, really trying to ensure that you're doing everything you can to help take care of them, to make sure that they understand the different things, that the why behind the things that they're responsible for. Right. So they know, hey, I got to go do X, Y, and Z to ensure our mission success. But here's the why behind it. Here's how it plays into the overall mission set for the entire wing. And that can be, definitely very difficult to do. And I'm not sure. Well, I know we didn't get it perfect. It can be very difficult with that many people spread out over those type of distances to have really, really good open communication. But that's what I always strove for. That was one of my 4 priorities. You guys have heard my priorities, when it comes to training, communication, family, and fun. I tried to live that as a squadron commander and as a group commander. And I've always thought those were very important. So that's what we tried to work towards, make sure that airmen understood those priorities, and try to have some success. So I learned a lot. I mean, it was a fantastic assignment. I was tired at the end of it, without a doubt. The main phone ringing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's awesome. But again, watching these 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old airmen, led by, 22, 23, 24-year-old staff sergeants out there handling, our nation's business. It's just so fulfilling to me. I love it. Love the career field, love the Air Force, love our enlisted corps, love watching NCOs, lead airmen. And I love just being a part of that energy. So it's fun.
Yes, sir, without doubt. So how Colonel Grimm transitioned from being a group commander to being a detachment commander, sir?
So I think it's a funny story, but we talked about these different tracks of, how you can make 06. You can also get on these different tracks and you make 06 and if you're going to go be a wing commander, that type of stuff. I was not on the track to be a wing commander, and it was very clear that group command was going to be my last level of command, which I'm completely okay with. Again, I didn't realize I was going to be in 06, and then once I found out, all I cared about was being a group commander, so that worked out. So definitely a dream come true for me. But I knew my commanding days were coming to an end, so I had a decision to make. Do I apply for ROTC, or do I just go on to be a staff officer somewhere? And wasn't that excited about being a staff officer. And I was very nervous about ROTC. My wife and I, we'd always talked about, trying to get back into ROTC at some point, because, we had such a good experience as, when I was a cadet. But I was worried about being bored, right? Because I just thought back to my ROTC days. We had classes twice a week as cadets. We were always around the detachment, during the weekdays. But we only had those 2 classes. I'm like, what's a cadre do the rest of the time, right? So I was really worried about being bored, and I don't like to be bored at all. And I always got to have something to do, and trying to be productive and whatnot. And so I talked to a bunch of buddies that were either current DET commanders or had been previous DET commanders. And across the board, every single one of them was like, you are not going to be bored. Now, there may be some stuff that you don't like to do as you're being an admin guy, doing stuff, but you're not going to be bored. And when you're around the cadets, it will make everything worth it. I'm like, all right. So at the 06 level, competing for a DET command is very, very competitive. So I think we had 5 detachments that were rotating the year that I applied. And I think they had over 50 colonels apply. Vast majority of them are graduated, wing or group commanders. So very, very competitive. So it's funny. So my boss at the time, my wing commander, so she calls me up. It's like, hey, John, you didn't get selected for ROTC. Okay, got it, man. Thanks for letting me know. So I'm now in my mind, I'm going to go be a staff officer. And if I'm going to be a staff officer, how do I get back to Europe or Hawaii? We've been stationed both in Europe twice, and we've been stationed in Hawaii. So if I'm going to go be a staff guy, how do I get back to Europe or to Hawaii? And it was about a week later, she called me up and she's like, hey, so that whole ROTC thing? I'm like, yes, ma'am. I kind of put it out of my head. You said I wasn't selected. Well, I was wrong. You're going to San Diego State University. I'm like, what? I'm like, yes, this is awesome. So it came down to, I didn't want to be a staff officer. And more importantly is I wanted to be around young folks full of energy, that are starting off their Air Force careers, just like our airmen and security forces, and hopefully to be able to have a positive impact on their lives as they start off in their careers. So I was fortunate, very happy to be here.
Pretty sure I can speak on behalf of the detachment and say that we are glad that you took the seat on that one, being that you're such a amazing leader, sir. But moving on, can you, and this will actually put you on the spot here, but your main challenges with running this detachment in particular, and then as well the best experiences that you've come across.
The main COVID-19. COVID-19 is making everything so difficult. And it really, it by far the biggest challenge has been COVID-19. You know, teaching on a virtual platform, you're trying to do lead lab and FTP virtually, is very difficult, and it takes away again from that personal connection. So I find that hard. You know, got to fight through the discouragement of it, and still try to make it, you know, meaningful, impactful for the cadets as we step through lead lab and FTP in our academic classes. But it definitely takes away from the overall ROTC experience. You know, field training, you know, this summer, you know, it was difficult because of all the COVID mitigations that we put in place, all the social distancing protocols that we adhered to, made everything more difficult. So that's definitely been by far the most challenging thing. But you know, I think if we look at COVID-19 across the board, it's probably the most challenging thing in all of our lives right now, no matter if it's dealing with our ROTC, whether it's dealing with your normal school work, whether it's dealing with trying to see or take care of family members or trying to have a social life. You know, I mean, just it's screwing everything up. So definitely by far is the most challenging. But it has been very inspiring, you know, watching the cadets figure out how to operate in this environment, right? It's like a big GLP, right? So, you know, nobody can meet in person. You can't do any of that type of stuff, but you still got to meet all these same objectives. Go, right? And to watch the cadets come up with these different solutions in the virtual world has just been absolutely fascinating. And again, you know, it shows the capability of not only of our cadets, but when you start to put a team together, you know, to put a family together, that you can fight through these obstacles, right? When these barriers are put in front of you, you know, how do you navigate, you know, around them? How do you freaking just bust through them, whatever it may be, right? And our cadet wing has done that. So that's been pretty cool to watch. You know, when you get on active duty, you know, not everything's gonna be perfect, right? You're gonna have to fight through, you know, different scenarios, different obstacles, you know, really hard, you know, subjects put in front of you, and you got to fight through that. And whether we realize it or not, in this virtual realm, we're learning how to do that. And the cadets are learning how to do that. So, you know, when they get out into active duty and they're presented, you know, this wicked hard problem that they got to solve, they're going to already have some experience of having to deal with a wicked hard problem. And they're going to be able to fight through it. So you guys are going to be able to fight through it. So that's pretty cool. You know, on the positive side though, man, you know, watching cadets succeed, watching flights come together as families, right? You know, watching cadets pin on second lieutenant, watching them come back from field training, getting to tell a cadet, hey, congratulations, we're going to pay for your college, right? You know, handing out those scholarships, getting to tell a cadet, hey, congratulations, you're going to be a pilot in the United States Air Force, right? Or you're going to go be a maintenance officer in the United States Air Force. Hey, congratulations, your first duty assignment is going to be at, you know, pick your base. And being part of that experience with the cadets, man, that's just awesome. You know, to watch them commission, to be there, you know, when they find out what AFSC they're going to go to, what base they're going to go to, you know, when they get picked up for different awards or different PDTs or, you know, all that different stuff, man, that is so fulfilling, and it's so awesome to watch your all success. And I would argue, again, you can correlate that on active duty as you watch your airmen, right? As you watch your airmen get promoted, right? When they pick up an assignment and they get to go to, hey, congratulations, you're headed off to Hawaii, right? Oh, hey, I got Hawaii, it's awesome, right? when you get to pin a medal on them, when you get to award them, hey, you're the Airman of the Corps, you're the NCO of the year, you're the Saigon winner, whatever it may be. So watching their success, we get to see the same thing in ROTC, which is absolutely fantastic, and it definitely makes it all worth it. Watching your all's growth from no kidding, civilians to second lieutenants. In 4 years to people coming into the program, or even if they're doing the 3-year program, that seems like a long time. In the big scheme of things, it's not. Especially 25 years of active duty, throw on 4 years of ROTC. I'm coming up on 30 years of doing this, and 4 years goes by so quickly. And your all's transformation is pretty freaking cool to watch. It is pretty cool to watch, and and then sending you off on active duty, and you guys get to really start your journey there. So, man, I'm honored to be part of it. It's pretty cool.
Yes, sir, and thank you. So, unfortunately, we know you're gonna be retiring soon. So, what is next after the Air Force for Colonel Grimm?
So I keep telling my wife that I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad. That's my game plan, and she keeps reminding me that our youngest daughter, so the only one that's left in the house, is going off to college in January. So by the time I do retire, we will not have any kids in the house. I don't know why she keeps bringing that up. I think I can still be a stay-at-home dad even though there's no kids in the house. I don't think the kids being here is a requirement. I'm not 100%, I haven't read the rule books. I'm not 100% sure. So I don't know what I'm going to do come retirement time. In fact, that's a scary subject for us. Because I've been doing this since I graduated college, obviously. So I think one of the things that ROTC has reminded me is how much I miss the college environment. So if an opportunity presented itself to stay with a university somewhere, not necessarily as a professor, but whether it had to do with veteran affairs at a university, or admissions type stuff, so trying to help people get into a college, that type of stuff, I think that would be fulfilling. So if I could stay around a university, I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's towards the top of the list. That or a stay-at-home dad, one or the other.
Awesome, sir. So this next question is going to be one that we ask every guest close to the end of the podcast. So that is, what does leadership mean to you, sir?
Yeah, so there's books and books and books and books, written on leadership. So, and I would argue no one ever perfects leadership, right? I think, learning about leadership is a lifelong journey. Especially as you reflect on where you've been, what you've done, where you're going, and those lessons learned, both good and bad. As you continue to refine your leadership capabilities. But to me, leadership, again, I'm going to go back to, again, the broken record aspect of it. One of the biggest parts of leadership in my mind is getting to know your people, right? One of the first things that people may say, leadership is all about accomplishing the mission. Yeah, okay, cool. It's, obviously you got to accomplish the mission. But simply saying you're going to accomplish the mission, that to me doesn't really scratch any of the itch when it comes to leadership. Because at the end of the day, in the United States Air Force, again, I mentioned this before, it takes a team to accomplish the mission. And if the team is not all going in the same direction, you're most likely not going to be successful. You're definitely not going to start taking your organization to a higher level. And again, I would argue that a good leader is going to take the time to get to know their people, right? And build that relationship with the people within their organization. So there is a clear understanding on who each person is, right? What they bring to the fight, where they hope to go, how you can help them to get to where their goals are, and interweave all of that information, all of that data into mission accomplishment, right? So, we talk about, mission first, airmen always. A lot of people don't understand what that means, but it's a very true statement. But you really got to peel it back. And what is that airman always? What does that mean? So if the mission's first, right, and you may potentially put people in harm's way, how can that be airman always then? Well, the airman always is: are you doing everything in your power to take care of your airmen, to ensure that they're properly trained, that they have a voice in where you're going as an organization? Do they feel like they're part of that family, right? Are they enjoying what they're doing? And are they seeing success? And you may have to put them in harm's way, but if you've trained them well, right, then you're giving them every opportunity to be successful and be able to come home with all their fingers and toes, right? If you give them a voice in the organization, then you as a leader, you're learning from them, you're understanding what their needs are. If there's deficits out there, deficiencies out there that you need to address, that they're comfortable bringing those up, so to fight for whatever resources, time, training, whatever it is, to correct some of that stuff. And you're seeing their success, right? And if their success is to do their 4 years and then go do something else, right? So their success is a honorable discharge at the end of their 4 years, that they can take off to the civilian world and say, hey, I'm a veteran, man. All right, I just served 4 years, served our country for 4 years, and now I want to go do X, Y, and Z and go be successful there. Did we help with that? Maybe they want to be the next chief master sergeant, of the Air Force, right? So how do you get them from senior airman to staff sergeant? Right? So is that part of their success also? Or you got a young airman that wants to be become an officer. So how do you set them up for success to get into a commissioning program, right? Or you have a young officer that they want to go to they're security forces officer, but what they really want to do is go fly. How can you help them become a pilot? But at the end of the day, getting to know your folks, to me, is one of the biggest parts of leadership that cannot be overstated. And everybody, no matter what career field you go into, should take the time to get to know their people, right? So even if you're that lieutenant going to a fighter squadron where you may not supervise an enlisted member until you're a lieutenant colonel, you have to get to know your fellow airmen, meaning you have to get to know your fellow lieutenants, those captains, and you got to get to know them on a personal level, so you can really build that family atmosphere, so that you all take care of each other in accomplishing the mission. So leadership is about taking care of your people, and you gotta get to know them. You gotta get to know them. So that's, to me, that's probably one of the biggest pieces of leadership. It's not the only piece, but one of the biggest pieces.
Definitely, sir. So we have the last question of the podcast.
Okay.
Any other words for cadets out there specifically having a hard time fulfilling the commitment of ROTC online?
Yeah. Yeah. So the online portion sucks, without a doubt. So there's obviously a commitment when it comes to being an ROTC, right? We don't give away second lieutenant bars, right? Folks have to go out and they have to earn them. And we have expectation for our cadets to do well in the classroom. We have expectations for our cadets to do well physically with their physical fitness. And we expect them obviously to be part of the cadet wing. So folks that are struggling in any of those realms, and especially as we're virtual, I think one of the biggest things is to understand that there's other people in the exact same boat as you, and don't be afraid to say something. So it goes back to those 4 priorities, right? So it goes back to communication. So if you find yourself really struggling, talk to your fellow cadets, right? We have a mentorship program with the POC cadets, because that's another great source of information on how they've dealt with different issues. And then, of course, all of the cadre members, we are all here for you. The whole reason why we're here is for every one of our cadets. That's why the United States Air Force has sent us here, is for each and every one of you. So we're always reachable. And, some people are like, you're a colonel, we can't talk to the colonel. Yes, you can. Welcome to ROTC. You can. So, being able to reach out and talk to the folks about where you're really struggling and see if there's different strategies that can be put in place to ensure success, right? Or to relieve pressure where pressure may need to be relieved. So one of the things that I always like to tell our cadets is, we hope that our cadets have balance in their lives. And, as young college students, that can be very difficult, right? Again, you got to be able to balance school. You got to be able to balance, working out. You got to be able to balance your ROTC commitments. A lot of our cadets work. All right. So you got to be able to balance work. And I would also argue you need to balance your social life, right? We want you guys to have friends, families, significant others, that type of stuff. So, trying to find that balance can be very difficult, right? Especially for some of our newer cadets, as they try to figure out what ROTC is about. We start really early in the morning. That can make things very difficult. We're virtual, so you may not make that personal connection with other cadets that if we were in person, that personal connection and those lifelong friendships would build a lot faster. But understanding that if you put in that work, try to find a balance between all those things. And if you find yourself out of balance, to talk to us. And us could be, again, fellow cadets, it could be POC cadets, it could be cadre, and talk to us and try to find some strategies to help get your life back into balance. Now, can I go take your mechanical engineering test for you? Absolutely not. You don't even want me taking a history test for you, right? You don't want me to none of that stuff. But where can we provide strategies for you to get yourself back into balance, and understand that's part of why we're here, right? And it's okay if you're out of balance, and to say that you're out of balance and that you need help. And nobody's going to look down at you, and nobody's going to be like, oh, okay, you're out of the program, because you're out of balance. We're all in this together, right? And if cadets are willing to put in the work, then we're willing to put in the work with them to get them through any type of, again, any obstacle or barrier that's put in their way, and keep moving forward, right? I encourage cadets to visualize, right? So visualize that commissioning day. What is that going to look like for you? What's it going to look like when whoever it is going to pin those second lieutenant bars on you? Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it boyfriend? Is it girlfriend? Is it wife, husband? Is it kid? Is it your best friend? Who's going to pin those on you? So imagine the ceremony, especially if we ever get back out to the midway. The midway is freaking pretty cool. Can you imagine standing there in front of everybody, and you got your family there, and then pinning second lieutenant's bars on you? And nobody ever addresses you as cadet again. And now they address you as LT. Imagine what that feels like, right? For me, my dad pinned me on, and my dad gave me my oath, right? As a brand new second lieutenant, my first oath, my commissioning oath, my dad got to do it, right? Visualize what that's like. And every time something gets really hard and it freaking sucks, man, I don't want to get up, for freaking FTP because it freaking sucks early. I freaking hate it, right? I want to sleep in, I was trying to have balance last night, and I hung out with my friends way too late, right? And I'm tired. Man, I want to be that second lieutenant. I want to get to that day where I put in all that work, and I'm now earned that right to be called a second lieutenant, United States Air Force or Space Force, right? Visualize that, right? And then understand all the hard work, all the sacrifice. It's all worth it to get to that culminating point of your ROTC career, to start your journey within the Air Force or Space Force. Visualize that. That will also help you, I would argue, will help you get through some of the rough times. A technique.
Cool, sir. That was extremely motivational, what you just said right there. So this concludes episode 6 of Live with Detachment 075. I'm one of your hosts, Cadet Third Class Jerry and Gihama. So it's great to have the PA team on here as well. Thank you guys to Cadet Major Rojas and Cadet Third Class Kinghorn. And a very special thanks to our guest, Colonel Grimm. Thank you. It's been a privilege having you on, sir.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity. It was fun.